It is summer. I think it'll be nice and cool at the peak though. It was July, which was the hottest part of the year. It was relatively cool here, considering the Plusan Empire's location was a so-called cold climate zone, but the summers were still hot. As someone born and raised in Kyushu, it'll take more heat than this to make me surrender. It could be tough for Iris though. As a former outdoor activities club member, climbing a mountain with our parasols up feels kinda wrong, but it'd be awful if Iris's pale skin got sunburned. Oh, Astrid, there's a fairy over there. Oh, where? A fairy's a rare sight. I just know Iris is jealous of my collection of 3 fairies. I'll bet she wants to make a contract with a fairy herself. It's over there, in the bushes. You're right. It's a fairy, Iris. All the fairies I'd seen up to now were about to be eaten by something, but this one was just peacefully fluttering around in some bushes. All right. Leave it to Big Sis to catch it for you. Wait a moment, Astrid. I'll do it. Oh, she's handling it herself. I was about to grab that fairy and force her to make a contract with Iris. Miss Fairy, Iris called out as she approached the fairy. A human. The fairy turned to face Iris. This fairy was wearing an indigo dress and had indigo hair and eyes. I could guess that its element was water. Have some candy, Iris said. Wow. Thank you, Miss Human. Iris must have noticed how my fairies were always hungry for desserts at the round table, because now she was luring the fairy with candy. This cousin of mine has quite the cunning strategy. I was just going to squeeze it until it agreed to come with us. Miss Fairy, would you please make a contract with me? Oh, are you a mage? That's right. I'm still an academy student, however. Oh, Iris is suggesting the contract herself. But what'll the fairy say? Will you give me more treats if I agree? I will indeed. And plenty of them. This one's a greedy fairy. Seems they're awfully demanding when their lives aren't in danger. Then let's make a contract. Could I ask your name, Miss Human? It's Iris. Oh, she did it. Well then. The fairy landed softly on Iris's palm and recited the same contract as always. By this contract, I, Eureka of Mount Valserberg, shall bind my soul to thee, Iris. Kiss me if thou wouldst accept the contract. Close thine eyes if thou wouldst refuse. Iris gave the fairy, whose name was apparently Eureka, a quick kiss on the forehead. Oh, now this is what I'm talking about. This combination of an ephemeral beauty and a fairy. I can't believe I don't have a smartphone on me. The contract is complete, Iris. I hope we can get along. I hope we get along too, Eureka. When Eureka smiled, Iris smiled back at her. This is like something out of a fantasy novel. Astrid, I made a contract with a fairy. Well done, Iris. You've realized a long-held dream. I couldn't help but smile too as Iris came back with Eureka following. So, little Eureka, what's your element? Water, I guess. Yes. Eureka's element is water. For anything water-related, just leave it to me. I would have preferred to see Iris with a fire fairy if possible. If she were to have a fire fairy, she could give Wera and her gang of depraved stalkers a few burns if they ever try anything. Can I ask your name? The fairy asked me. It's Astrid. And these 3. I gave my breast pocket and shoulder bag a light tap. Ugh. Master. So hot. Blau and my other slightly stewed fairies appeared. From right to left, this is Blau, Gelb, and Rot. Look, everyone. It's a new fairy. Ah. Nice to meet you. Blair's name is Blau. Blau was the most outgoing of my fairies. Wow. You must be an incredible mage if you have 3 fairies with you. It's true, Iris said. Astrid is a magic genius. Getting showered with praise from Eureka and Iris feels a little awkward. Cut it out. I think you might even be able to defeat the undead. Eureka said. Huh. Undead. Hey, don't go turning this from fantasy to horror. I can't stand horror. An undead dragon appeared nearby. It roams the forest each night, gobbling up animals and fairies. The undead dragon scared me so much that I fled all the way here. It never seems to leave the forest. Undead dragon. Some kind of dragon zombie. Sounds gross. Hard. This area is under the care of the Adventurers Guild, isn't it? Yes, it should be, he replied. Did a beast appear? Him. I can't really rely on the Adventurers Guild to have taken care of this, especially not if we're planning to stay here tonight. I think I'd better be on my guard. Well, let's just head for the summit. We can submit an undead dragon subjugation quest to the guild later. I'm sure some highly reliable adventurers will show up to exterminate it. Astrid, couldn't you defeat the undead dragon yourself? Defeat it. But how could I fight a dragon when I'm just a student? Stop looking at me with those glistening eyes, Iris. Come on, let's head for the peak. I'm glad you could make a contract with a fairy. All right. With the fairy encounter over, we continued climbing toward the peak. I worried that Iris might collapse with exhaustion before we got there, but she reached the top without giving up. That might have been thanks to her joy at getting herself a fairy. Iris is such a hard worker. What a great view, I remarked once we'd reached the top of the mountain. Yes, agreed Iris. It's wonderful, indeed. We appreciated nature's splendor while enjoying our lunches. Looking out from the mountain's peak, we had a clear view of the surrounding area and the ancient woodland that covered it. Because it was possible to make fire using elemental magic in this world, the people here didn't need to cut down very many trees for fuel, so much of the woodland's natural vegetation was preserved.